What can OpenCog do for biology?
Well, I mean, the problem with biology now is that in the genomics and the rest of the omics era, there's just like massive amounts of data, which is growing at an exponentially increasing rate. So there's no way any one person can think about more than a tiny fraction of it. So to solve biology, we're going to need artificial intelligence. So the end game is to make an artificial biologist that will digest all the world's biological data and solve biology and medicine.
Right, with the added extra bonus of taking us along for the ride to this trip to indefinite lifespanville, right?
Sure, assuming it's biologically possible, which seems like it probably should be, but
Yeah.
it's an empirical question.
Yes, that's right. Longevity, escape velocity, indefinite by at least the human standard that we have today. So yes, well, let's talk about the importance of having a long life. Why would we? Actually, I'm gonna.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'd actually want to live forever. I mean, but I certainly want to have the option. I mean, I'm not ready to die now. And I can probably think of several lifetimes, like normal lifetimes worth of things to do. So, I mean, I'm certainly all for several hundred years of life. And
Yeah.
then,
I mean,
and then, once I get them, we'll see, if I'm finally tired of everything, then there's always suicide. But better be able to choose than to have to die of old age.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, who knows what I'm going to think when I'm 100 or 200 or 300. I'm not there yet. I certainly don't want to die now. And, if we're living in a sort of similar physical conditions, we're happy, we're productive, we're not sort of constantly harassed by biological failures.
Sure, quality of life. There's no point, yeah. It's not just living, but living pleasurably.
By the way, what about David Pearce? You know him? He's one of the co-founders of the World Transhumanist Association.
Don't know.
The Hedonistic Imperative? The Abolitionist Project. You must know Nick Bostrom.
I've heard, I mean, I don't know him personally.
You've heard of Nick Bostrom, right? Okay, so David Pearce is all about creating, or biologically adapting people so that they're flourishingly happy and live in gradients of bliss. Not necessarily sort of, smacked out and slumping over lotus thrones for the rest of time and all eternity.
Well, I mean, I think the problem with that idea is that, I think emotions are a form of cognition. So if you just were happy all the time, then you wouldn't be able to think properly. So that's sort of not actually, living. Or it would be pretty much the equivalent of living, dependent on heroin or something. Or using painkillers if you need to be euphoric all the time.
Yeah, I find that interesting, the idea of just being happy. But, imagine we had it's a very narrow bandwidth of cognition by our standards. You can imagine laughing all day, it would get boring. Do you at a comedy, it's good in small doses. You don't live in a comedy show.
Right. Suffering is part of life, so if you can't feel that, then you're not really living.
You can't feel suffering. Maybe. Look, I guess some people suffer a lot, and they don't know very much bliss, and they don't know happiness in the way that we understand because they're cognitively limited in that aspect.
Right. Well, that's as the result of being environmentally impoverished because we're still living under the scarcity paradigm of poverty and
riddle me this. Okay, if you had the option to spend a week in utopia where you lived in gradients of flourishing bliss, where spectrums of intelligence and sensitivity to novelty were not diminished, but they were just tainted with this happy sort of thing. Would you do it?
Well,
Just
sure.
the way-
I mean, well, that's just like, you know, doing heroin or.
Well, no, I don't know. I've never done heroin, but like, if doing heroin, from what I understand, makes you a zombie. Like, who can go to work on heroin? I don't know.
Oh well, people who are opiate dependent can certainly do that.
Yeah,
and
right.
function normally.
I used to live with heroin addicts, and they didn't look as though they could work when they had it.
Well, if you're on, I mean, it depends upon like the dose you're using and that kind of thing. I mean, I guess it's true because what it does. I mean, opiates. You know, if you're using opiate agonists, then if you're feeling so blissed out, then you aren't really motivated to do much of anything.
Well, this guy was just had bags under his eyes, and he'd sit on the couch with the TV blaring, with his the bottom jaw was just like in free fall. Well, look at Seymour, with Seymour Hoffman. What's his name?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty productive. But I wonder if he was ever on the drug when he was doing his movies.
Probably. I mean, if you're dependent, then you're gonna need it, all the time. If you're opiate dependent, once your blood level is too low for a certain amount of time, then you go into withdrawals. So it depends, and you can do it recreationally, like do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was actually my healthcare job was working with injection drug users.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
So I have lots of experience with people in various stages of intoxication and dependency.
I'm trying to filter it for you, so I don't have to drink it all myself. You see, my wicked ways. All right. So yes, solving biology. We want to solve biology, not just molecular biology, but what are the bottlenecks? What are the... Sorry?
I think we're starting there so far.
Yeah. Starting at molecular biology.
Yeah, or at least with genomic level stuff, but I mean, the nature of life is it's a whole, an integrated whole, so ultimately you have to get all the pieces and all the levels of hierarchical levels of organization to encompass from molecules to, and maybe even from subatomic. I mean, if you want to get consciousness into the mix, that might be like a submolecular quantum phenomenon, all the way up to, to the level of the organism and the population of organisms, and maybe ultimately the biosphere.
The noosphere. What about all those turtles that they say exist below the submolecular?
Oh, the turtles? It's turtles all the way down.
Yeah. Is that what consciousness is made of? Turtles?
Probably. Well, there's certainly there's the Turtle Island. It's North America.
Yeah. That could be a very conscious island.
Sure. I mean, no, there's the whole Gaia hypothesis. I mean, the biosphere is conscious and self-regulating, and probably, in a continental sub-ecosphere could also be that. But I just saw, actually, that was one of the things I just, on my Facebook feed, was there was someone pointing out that North America does actually look like a turtle, so it really is Turtle Island. So how did the Native Americans know that it looked like a turtle?
Is North America conscious?
Could be. Or what they call the noosphere.
Yes, the noosphere. Yes, it's like the noosphere. There's a paper about whether America is conscious, I'll send it to you.
As the country, or
yes.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, that's part of the thing. I mean, that's one of the interesting things about Ben's model of, intelligence, is based on patterns, is that you can it's easy to generalize that to like, you know, societies being conscious or corporations being conscious on some level, or at least as intelligent actors, or you know, surely not necessarily moral actors, but intelligent.
Not moral agents, not moral actors, not moral subjects.
Well, I mean, I think corporations would be, in particular, would be. I mean,
Well,
their fundamental imperative is to maximize their profit, so that's certainly amoral at best, if not downright evil, depending on your point of view.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, like, it seems though the economy is biased towards the well-being of companies.
Sure, yeah.
Which is fucked because they don't have, like, a subjective experience, at least as far as I know.
Well, they might.
But they might.
Who knows? I mean, it's just like, it would be a different
seem
subjectivity from ours, because they would be embodied in a very different way.
But do they have raw feelings? Do they
I don't know.
suffer?
Probably not. I mean, well, they, you know, they can objectively. It would depend. Yeah, it would depend upon what their consciousness would be. Maybe they'll need to be They won't be able to that until their corporateness is embodied in an AI, which seems very likely. That's where some of the earliest AIs are going to be. Is going to be like for organizing
Head shrinks for
corporations,
organizations,
and
psychologists,
military
and
governments, those kind of things.
So we can get the organisations lying on couches getting like Freudian and Jungian analysis, and hopefully they feel better about the world. And if they do, maybe they'll make it better.
Well, yeah, I mean, they couldn't actually feel better about it. I mean, if they were conscious, they would have to feel badly about themselves because they caused so much suffering. So they'd have to like
Fucking dickheads.
become altruistic.
Yeah.
To feel better. Ultimately.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe their sense of morality is completely different from ours, and maybe they have a relative sense of morality, and their sense of morality is entirely dependent on how well they, as organisations, regardless of the well-being of other organisations, like a Randian sort of objectivist sort of how well can you sort of survive in this economic environment. The moral imperative is is survival of the fittest organisation. Maybe that's
not the moral imperative, because people with that kind of moral imperative are like, you know, morally bankrupt.
From our perspective, yes, and maybe even from the universe's perspective. Are you a moral relativist, or
Certainly, like, yeah. I mean, you want to like minimize suffering. Seems like the ultimate moral imperative. Minimize suffering, maximize joy.
Yeah, it's a Bantheum sort of argument there, yeah, in a sense. I kind of like, I sort of subscribe to that, but I'd also like to add to the equation something like the freedom to choose, and also sensitivity to novelty. I think it's very important, because just bliss without novelty is very narrow.
Sure.
I mean, imagine being like just like having a repetitive happy experience being replayed over and over again. It would be boring, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think certainly for me, but I think any conscious being, any subjectivity is going to need novelty to some extent.
Yeah, it's hard to know how much, but when you think of it, if you were like you were saying, well, there's many things you want to do before you die, and at some stage in the future, you may want to just like, okay, I've had enough. I'm ready to fall off my perch.
Sure.
But why? I mean, like, if there's more novelty out there to experience, then wouldn't you want to, like, that's the sort of thing that'd keep me alive. Not just a knowledge that I'm going to be happy for time and all eternity, but there's something new around the corner.
Potentially, yeah, no. I mean, I think that's certainly one thing that would motivate, the desire for immortality, or to keep living. I think maybe just at some point though, maybe unless your consciousness or your intellect is seriously augmented, you'll just reach the limits of something. Maybe at some point you'll just be sort of saturated and nothing will be new because you've basically seen it all.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know enough to know whether that's the fact. I mean, David Deutsch thinks that, there's always going to be permutations of novelty that we haven't, which
Sure. I mean, if you believe
just
there's
infinite. It's like the beginning of infinity.
Sure, I don't know who said it, but it was like the universe is not only queerer than we imagine, but queerer than we can imagine. So, I mean, I think, and that's probably...
I hope it is.
Any kind of... Yeah, well, I mean, certainly any kind of finite system can't completely encompass an infinite one, so there's, theoretically there's room for infinite novelty.
Well, that sounds good to me. I mean, I'm willing to accept that there's going to be some things that'll become totally apparent, but like once, if civilization gains super intelligence collectively or whatever, we build an AI, it's super intelligent, it takes us with us, we get to experience the massive increase in intelligence, but it doesn't mean that we've experienced everything. It doesn't mean that every possible permutation, combination.
Sure.
We're talking about combinational explosions here.
Sure, but
Even
there's a certain
with
point where
quantum.
you might generalize, but like, how different are they really? I don't know. I guess you'd never know until you get to that point.
Yeah, maybe the analysis, the top level, like looking down on things, might seem very similar, but the actual raw feelings, the experience of every permutation of possibility. If there is a container that contains every permutation.
Well, but I mean, if you're talking about like the actual sort of raw experience, in some sense, that's always unique. Eternally unique.
Yeah.